There's an increasingly common narrative going around that I want to talk about in this video. It's one that kind of rubs me the wrong way, as something that it affects me sort of personally, I guess. As someone who's into coding, as someone who's also a bit of a hobbyist, likes to game, for example, a bit of a gamer as well. I often see these sort of videos about people sort of quitting gaming or quitting some sort of hobby, something that, you know, people use as escapism or some means to, you know, take the stress away at the end of the day and have something else to do in life just to wind down, you know. It's not all about work, right? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of these videos where people are cutting these kind of things out of their lives entirely to get a career, basically, or to sort of advance their career or whatever their motive is. So I want to talk a bit more about that and sort of a nuanced approach, I guess, trying to look at it from different perspectives, basically. There's a lot of these videos very much are based on sort of personal anecdotal experience, and yeah, I want to try and look at it from different sides because, yeah, there's too many of these sorts of videos, and an increasing amount of them, I would say, where it's pushing almost a potentially toxic mindset, at least in my opinion. But there is obviously validity to it, so I want to talk about sort of the points that these videos are making, and then I want to sort of add some additional points to that and some additional perspectives, shall we say. Anyway, let's dive into it. So let's first take a look at the viewpoint of these videos, the point that these videos generally make. And usually they're coming from a perspective of someone that, say, has had a bit of a gaming addiction, right? Or some other kind of hobby that they're addicted to, you know, escaping with, right? Say they're quite stressed out and their lives, they've got like a job they don't like, they want to try and break into a career with coding, sort of software engineering or something with data or QA, something like that. And basically they're incredibly motivated, obviously, to do that, but they have this sort of gaming addiction in the background. And what they tend to do, which to be fair works for a lot of people in this sort of position, is they tend to cut it out of their lives entirely because, well, it's an addiction, right? They're spending a lot of their spare time, probably too much, I would say, of their spare time absorbed in this hobby, which, you know, is quite often like gaming. And so what they do is they go cold turkey, basically, and quit entirely, because that's, in that circumstance, the easiest way for them. And they'll take that extra time and either slot coding and learning how to code into that time, or what they'll do is they'll spread it out throughout the day. Say they don't want to do it right after work and they're a bit, you know, stressed out, still need to wind down a little bit. They might say do it a bit later at night, or they might do it sort of early in the morning, or they'll split it up throughout their day, maybe even at work, say on their lunch breaks, or, you know, stay back after work. If you need to commute home, for example, it's a common one as well, where if you have to commute into like an office or something, you know, you maybe don't necessarily want to sit in traffic, so rather than waste that time in traffic, a lot of people sort of stay behind and find a quiet space and learn to code there, you know. There's a lot of different things that people sort of use, different methods of slotting this stuff into their day-to-day. But that time is, you know, obviously greater when you don't have a hobby added into that as well. So a lot of these people are just sort of min-maxing their time, I guess, and that obviously works if you have an addiction to your hobby or to gaming or something like that, because you'll spend a good chunk of your spare time absorbed in this hobby. It might not necessarily be healthy for you in general to be like that, and it could have a lot of negative effects, and that's an entirely different subject, I suppose. It could be a whole other video, sort of not even related to coding or anything like that, about sort of gaming addiction or any sort of addiction, really. It can be quite tricky, that. I'm not here to discuss the validity of gaming addiction or anything like that. That's not why I'm here. That's certainly not what I'm debating here. I'm just sort of discussing where these videos generally come from and where they get their ideas from. The issue I have with it is because it's not really a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone, right? Not everyone's in this exact same scenario where they're sort of addicted to gaming or whatever it is. And it's rarely discussed, I would say. People in different perspectives who say just use like gaming or some sort of hobby to wind down, and they'll see these sorts of videos, they'll think, I need to cut that out of my life, and then they'll probably never go back to it once they find success, and then they'll develop this sort of toxic relationship with something that once made them happy, which is kind of bleeding into my next point, where if, say, you are just a casual hobbyist, say you like to spend a couple hours in your week just sort of winding down, playing some games here or there, just casually, after work or something. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And you can still find time other points in the week. If you are motivated, you can find time, say, the weekends and things, or, if you wake up a bit earlier in the mornings, or maybe stay up a bit later at night, depending on what your situation is, whether you're sort of a morning person, you're a bit of a night owl. There is never a one-size-fits-all solution. It just depends on who you are as a person. For most people, especially in that scenario where they're sort of casual hobbyists, just use something to wind down for a couple of hours a week, I would never recommend that they go cutting that out of their lives just to sort of learn any skill, really, that for the purposes of getting a job, obviously. If you're learning a skill as a hobby, say you're getting into photography or something, or some kind of art in your spare time, just because you're interested in it, right? That's fine. That's obviously, in a way, a form of winding down, because you're just genuinely interested in the topic. And it's fun for you, I'm assuming, right? And coding can be fun as well, to be fair, but it is mentally taxing and can be quite hard sort of on your brain, I suppose. You can be burnt out very easily, and especially if you cut sort of all your hobbies out of your life. You don't have anything else to do. It becomes your entire life outside of work. It becomes your whole life, your personality. It becomes coding and work, and that's kind of it. And you'll find yourselves getting burned out pretty quickly if you do that. Me personally, I spent a lot of time sort of during 2020, obviously I had a lot of spare time then, sort of learning how to code and things, and diving into, say, like a boot camp or something like that, 5 days a week, days and nights, you're learning how to code constantly. That's tiring on the brain, and that was only a few months, right? A lot of these guys who are learning now are doing it entirely self-taught, and they're trying to replicate the same thing, sort of 5 days a week, 6-7 days a week, every night, every morning, whatever it is, and they're just cutting every other hobby out of their lives. They're spending every waking moment that isn't work trying to learn how to code, trying to break into this industry. It's just not healthy, to be honest. It's not a sustainable way to live. And even if you do manage to break through that and break into the industry and get a job and things like that, you'll be, one, burnt out before you even start, most likely. Maybe not. But then that leads me to my second point. Even if you aren't burnt out, you'll develop this sort of bad relationship with this hobby that you once had. And as someone who ruined a hobby actually through trying to make it a career, I actually studied music back at sort of uni and things, and I probably shouldn't have done that, because music was my hobby at the time. It was the thing I found interest in at sort of my younger years, sort of in my teenage years. That was the thing I was interested in, and I kind of ruined that hobby through trying to make it a career. It's a slightly different subject, but the similarity here is that I now have this bad relationship with this hobby because I sort of see it in this bad way now, where if I look at sort of playing or writing music or something like that in my spare time, it just kind of feels like work, or it just feels like almost like a waste of time because I just haven't been keeping up with it or whatever. So a slightly different reason to have a bad relationship with it, but it's not a great feeling. It's not a great thing. Something that I spent so long doing throughout my life, I no longer get the same joy from. And that's the kind of thing that can happen if you, say, cut something like gaming out of your life entirely. If you've been doing it for years, if it's something that you have this relationship with where you do it and it makes you happy, it makes you relaxed, it helps stress and things like that, then yeah, it can lead to just writing off the hobby entirely and not going back to it because you see it as a sort of time waster. I guess my point here is there's different viewpoints here. Obviously, if you're, as some of these videos sort of make the point of, if you're addicted to gaming, for example, if you're spending a lot of your time, an unhealthy amount of time, shall we say, playing games, then yeah, that's probably a reason to give them up, or at the very least cut them down. But a lot of these people who are addicted to games, they have addictive personalities, and moderation just isn't an option for them, right? So in that scenario, I totally understand sort of that viewpoint and why they might want to go cold turkey and cut gaming entirely from their lives. But it doesn't fit everyone, is what I'm trying to get at. It doesn't fit every situation. So I guess to wrap up, a relatively short one this, because there's not really a huge amount to say other than basically just look at your own situation and figure out, do I need to quit this entirely? Is it good for me? Is it healthy for me? Do I get anything out of this that's actually useful? In the case of gaming, I would say unless you're spending an unhealthy amount of time on it, don't quit gaming. You could maybe cut down a little bit. You maybe reprioritize a little bit, and if you're trying to learn how to code, maybe think about spending a bit more time doing that, and then winding back the gaming time a little bit. But then, having said that, if you have a more sort of addictive personality and you quite regularly find yourself just dropping everything for gaming, for example, or whatever the hobby is, then yeah, it's maybe something to consider, but it's not the be-all end-all answer. It's kind of the whole point of this video. So to reiterate, just look at your own situation and figure out if you're the type of person who has to give up whatever it is that you do in your spare time to wind down, because it's a dangerous path and you can lead yourself to burnout, poor mental health, depression and things like that can sort of creep up on you quite quickly. And it's always healthy to have a hobby or some means of winding down, because we're human, right? We're not machines. And coding is hard. It's a mentally taxing thing. And as a software engineer, I can say that as a career, it's quite tiring. You might be sitting in front of a screen all day and things like that, and it might seem like a glamorous lifestyle. I know a lot of these videos, day in the life videos, sort of glamorize it a bit, but honestly, it's not really like that for the most part, and it can be quite anxiety-inducing and tiring, and you have to use a lot of sort of problem-solving skills and initiative and stuff, and that can be quite daunting for a lot of people, especially sort of people coming in from non-technical backgrounds and things, and maybe don't necessarily have to worry about this sort of way of thinking in their day-to-day currently. It's quite the change. Me personally, I came from sort of a background where I didn't really have to think in the way that I do now, basically, and it was quite a difficult shift in terms of sort of being able to maintain the energy, the sort of the motivation to continue to be good, basically, and be good at my job and not get burnt out. And I've learned over time how to manage that, but it's not easy, and I would say having a hobby has definitely helped that. So keep doing your hobbies and consider everything, basically. Don't just blindly follow the narratives that these videos paint, because they are very anecdotal, they are very personal to the people telling these stories usually, and they tend not to explain the various viewpoints that and perspectives that people sort of might have, right? So anyway, that's it. That's it from me. If you've got any sort of opinions of your own on this topic, then please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear them and discuss them with you. But otherwise, that's it from me. And like, subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. I will be hopefully posting a bit more sort of maybe even stuff related to this sort of more mental health, kind of healthy kind of mindsets and things, because I feel like it's an underappreciated space in tech, and I think some people need to talk about it more. So if you want to hear more of this stuff, particularly from me, then like I said, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.